makes is big announcement. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For 1,000 pounds sister latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. It was a quiet Tuesday morning in the small town of eastern Kentucky, the kind of day where the mist clings to the hills like a memory too heavy to let go. The air carried the damp scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke, and the only movement came from the occasional rustle of a squirrel darting across a porch swing. Inside a modest, two-story home with peeling white paint and a well-worn swing set in the yard, Tammy Slaton stood in front of a full-length mirror, her fingers tracing the outline of her collarbone, a shape she hadn't seen in over a decade. She didn't cry. Not then. Not yet. She simply stared. For 22 years, Tammy Slaton had been known to the world as the woman who weighed over 1,000 pounds, a figure that dominated headlines, reality TV episodes, and internet memes. She was the subject of pity, of fascination, of cruel jokes disguised as entertainment. Her journey, chronicled on TLC's 1000 Web Sisters, had become a spectacle. But on this morning, as sunlight spilled across the hardwood floor and caught the faint glimmer of sweat on her brow, Tammy wasn't a TV personality. She wasn't a statistic. She wasn't even a patient anymore. She was just Tammy. And for the first time in her adult life, she could see herself, truly see herself, without the distortion of fat, without the weight of expectation, without the crushing burden of a body that had become a prison. She had lost 546 pounds. The number still felt surreal, even to her. 546 pounds. That's more than the average weight of 2 adult men. More than the combined weight of a grand piano and a refrigerator. More than the weight of the life she'd been forced to live, the life of hospitalizations, of wheelchairs, of being carried by strangers, of never being able to walk to the mailbox without help, of never being able to sit in a regular chair without fear of breaking it. She turned slowly, watching the way her skin now draped in soft folds over arms that had once trembled with the effort of lifting a coffee cup. Her face, once obscured by layers of tissue, now held the sharpness of cheekbones and the quiet dignity of a woman who had stared down despair and refused to blink. She wore a simple black tank top and leggings clothes she'd bought 6 months ago, thinking they'd be too small. They weren't. They fit. Perfectly. Tammy had spent nearly 4 years in a battle that no camera could fully capture, no interview could adequately summarize, and no social media post could ever truly honor. It wasn't just about food. It wasn't just about willpower. It wasn't even just about surgery, though the gastric bypass she underwent in 2022 was the turning point. It was about healing, about forgiveness, about learning how to live inside a body that finally belonged to her. The journey began long before the cameras arrived, long before the world started calling her the 1000 Web Sister. It began in childhood in the quiet, unspoken trauma of being told she was too much, too big, too loud, too slow, too much of a burden. Her mother, who loved her fiercely but was overwhelmed by her own struggles, often fed her out of guilt, out of fear, out of the belief that if Tammy was full, she was safe. So Tammy ate, and ate, and ate. By her teens, she couldn't walk to school without stopping every few steps. By her 20s, she was on oxygen. By 30, she was confined to a hospital bed for weeks at a time, recovering from blood clots, infections, and heart complications. She had been told she wouldn't live to see 40. But Tammy didn't die. She fought. And she fought alone. For years. She didn't tell anyone how much she wanted to change. Not even her sister Amy, not even her closest friends. She was afraid of failure, afraid of hope, afraid that if she dared to believe she could be different, she'd be crushed again, this time by the weight of her own dreams. It was only after a near-fatal episode in the spring of 2021, when she went into cardiac arrest while trying to move from her bed to her wheelchair, that something inside her cracked open, not with rage, not with despair, but with a quiet, terrifying clarity. If I don't do this now, I never will. She called her doctor the next morning. I want to live, she said, not just survive. Live. What followed was a grueling, unglamorous, and often invisible transformation. She didn't do it for the cameras. She didn't do it for the fans. She didn't do it to prove anything to the internet trolls or the critics who whispered that she'd just gotten lucky or only lost weight because she had rich relatives. She did it because she wanted to be able to hug her nieces without fear of hurting them. She wanted to stand in a shower without needing a bench. She wanted to sit on the floor with her dog and scratch behind his ears without groaning. She wanted to buy a pair of jeans without calling 3 stores to ask if they had a size that could fit her. She wanted to walk into a grocery store and not feel every pair of eyes on her like a spotlight. The surgery was only the beginning. The real work began the day she left the hospital. She learned to eat again, not by deprivation, but by relearning what nourishment meant. No more gallons of soda, no more buckets of fried chicken, no more midnight snacks consumed in the dark, out of loneliness. She learned to chew slowly, to taste, to pause, to recognize hunger versus emotional emptiness. She met with therapists who helped her untangle the knots of trauma that had tied her to food for decades. She joined a support group for bariatric patients, people who understood the loneliness of losing weight without losing the shame. She started walking, 10 feet, then 20, then around the block, then to the mailbox, then to the corner store. Each step was agony. Each step was victory. Her sister Amy became her anchor. They walked together slowly, painfully, sometimes crying, but always together. They started a journal. Not for the show, not for the audience, just for themselves. Each entry began with, "Today, I didn't give up." There were setbacks. In the first year, she lost 180 pounds, a miracle to some, a disappointment to others. She gained back 12 pounds during a period of depression after her dog passed away. She cried for 3 days straight, but she didn't quit. She didn't go back to the old habits. She talked to her counselor. She called Amy. She went for a walk in the rain. She learned to forgive herself. By 2023, she was down to 450 pounds. People started noticing. The show's producers, who had been filming intermittently, began asking if she'd be willing to document the journey not as a spectacle, but as a story. Tammy agreed, but with conditions. No humiliation, no sensationalism, no before and after slideshows that turned her into a punchline. They agreed. And so, over the next 2 years, cameras followed her not as a sideshow, but as a woman. They filmed her first time wearing a size 18. They filmed her first time standing in line at the DMV without needing assistance. They filmed her first time riding a bike, a small child-sized one at first, then a regular one, then a mountain bike she bought on sale at a thrift store. They filmed her crying in the shower after her first full-body scan showed her body fat percentage had dropped from 78% to 32%. They filmed her holding her niece for the first time without a harness. They filmed her walking into a church service and sitting in a pew without help, and the way the congregation stood and clapped, not out of pity, but out of awe. She didn't smile for the cameras. Not often. She didn't need to. She didn't want to perform joy. She wanted to feel it. And then, in the fall of 2025, she hit a milestone. 454 pounds. She weighed 546 pounds less than she had at her heaviest. The number was so big, so impossible, that even her doctors paused when they saw the chart. "You're not just a success story," one of them told her. "You're a medical marvel. We've never seen this kind of sustained, healthy weight loss in someone with your history." She nodded. She didn't feel like a marvel. She felt like a survivor. And now, on this Tuesday morning, as the sun climbed higher and the birds began their chorus outside her window, Tammy knew it was time. She had been quiet for months. No social media updates, no interviews, no appearances. She had been living, just living, not performing, not proving, not explaining. But today, she would speak. Not to the world. Not for the cameras. But for herself. She opened her laptop. She didn't use a teleprompter. She didn't rehearse. She sat in her favorite